Hey, everybody. Welcome to the That's Allowed podcast. I'm your hostess, Dr. Audrey McKeon, and today we have Teri Karjala. Teri, please introduce yourself to this audience here.
Hello. Yes, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me. As far as I go, so really quick story. I was trained as a traditional therapist. I grew a large company that's owner independent at this point, and then that's given me the freedom to do what I feel really truly feel called to do, which is a company called Talking with Teri, where I work with women entrepreneurs, really clearing out the barriers, the blocks, and all the limiting beliefs that hold us back from really, creating the life that we absolutely love. So, yes.
That's all such good stuff. Such good stuff. And I know my audience is really going to resonate with you and with that. So, without any further ado, I'm going to ask you that first question. What story is the world not getting?
I love this because I'm going to interpret this as, I truly believe, and maybe because my mindset goes into like the entrepreneurs, the women entrepreneurs that I work with,
Mhm.
and women in general, just not even whether they're working in corporate America or whatnot. Time and time again, I think that's a story that we're not getting quite yet, is that we are these amazing, brilliant, powerful beings. And when we step into what I call our purpose and our passion and our potency, like anything's possible. And I used to think that that was like when I heard that saying, or like I saw the T-shirt and it says anything's possible. I'm like, right. Like, but when I get to this place of like truly, when you're in alignment with everything that the world, universe, God, spirit, angels, your intentions, your purpose, your gifts, like all of it, when it's all in alignment and it lines up so beautifully, it truly is remarkable what the human mind and the human body can do.
Absolutely. I love to explore that distinction between improbable and impossible.
Yes, yes,
Literally anything is possible.
correct.
Now, the question is, what challenges are you willing to take on to do something highly improbable?
Yes, I love it. Well, and you're speaking my language right now because I, and maybe it's a little bit of ego, but when people tell me no, right, my immediate response is like, well, then there has to be another way. Like, I don't go, like, maybe I just don't receive no very well, but like, again, it becomes my fuel being like, oh, like, well, okay, so I was looking at the obvious answer. Now, like, let's go back and let's be really creative and let's like look at like what are all the possibilities and like what if we could create a different way, or what if, right? And so I find it to be really engaging in the brain because of course like the brain is going to find the evidence that we support it, right? But it also, I mean, that could be positive or negative. And if I'm going like, well, okay, what else is possible, what else can I create, the brain goes, okay. And every time, knock on wood, every time I've found another way, right? And so I love that distinction there before, because like, you're right, like we have to do the work, right? And oftentimes when we get a no, or we like, oh, that didn't work out, we stop that route of that, pursuing that dream or pursuing that, target in which we're, pursuing.
Yeah. As an executive assistant, I learned never to say no. I always said yes if.
I
And
love it.
and that's just part of who I am. I think I'm just
Yeah.
like an optimist. And so I'm like, yeah, we
Yeah.
can figure
Yeah.
that out. Like, let's
Yeah.
let's let's figure out a way. That said, I think, I had a tendency to just accept no as the end of the conversation when actually that's the
Mhm.
beginning of the conversation.
That's brilliant.
And
Yeah.
so that's something I've had to train myself on is when I hear a no, I go, okay, but why? Let's
We're gonna get along so well. Like you're gonna be my new instant best friend. Okay. I'm like,
excellent.
like I love the questioning. I love the curiosity. Like, right? Like when we get into that place of exploration and curiosity and like why? Like, why is that? Because there was a story years and years ago, and I don't remember who wrote about it, so I apologize. But essentially the story goes, it was like third generation, they were baking And they were, oh goodness, I think it was at a holiday, and the grandmother, the mother cuts off the butts of the ham and puts the ham in the oven. And the granddaughter goes, "Mom, why do you do it that way?" And she's like, "I don't know. Like my grandmother did it. Like my mom did it. My grandmother did it. Blah, 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 blah." And it went up to like 4 generations. And eventually they went up the chain. Like, why did this? Why did we do this? And it literally like was like, 40 years ago, the great grandmother, the pan was too, the ham was too big for the pan. So she cut the butts off to make it fit. But they continued to do it, right? We continued to do, and we didn't question, right? And so I'm always opening up. And when I try to lead by example with my daughter, it's like asking the question, like, right? Like what does that open us up for when we open that question? Because there's oftentimes we do things unconsciously or consciously, and this was generationally passed down, that over time sometimes it changes, the story changes, or the meaning of it changes, right? And so I love
Absolutely.
the fact that you're constantly questioning the why, right?
Yeah. They say tradition is a set of solutions for which we have forgotten the problems. And I
Yeah.
think we often don't spend enough time defining our problems.
Yeah.
Einstein, I think it was, who said, if I had an hour to figure out to solve a really difficult problem, I would spend 50 minutes defining the problem.
Mm, yeah. I
And
love this.
yeah, so I've been thinking about that a lot lately. So I'm just going to pose this question to you. What do you think is the biggest problem facing most of the people that you work with? These women entrepreneurs, I would say, for the most
Yeah.
part.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest problem that they're facing?
Okay, and I usually will respond by saying I truly believe, going back to the population I work with, is it goes back to mindset, right?
Yes.
Because I can teach strategy, I can be taught skills, I can be taught, I think Warren Buffett is the one who he constantly hires waitresses. If they have great customer service, he's like, because you can teach everything else, right? Like how you show up, how you're being, right? And I think that we come back to, one of the biggest challenges is mindset. And now that's a pretty global concept. I understand that. But it also impacts, our confidence, our ability to, the self-sabotaging behaviors,
Yeah.
the limiting stories. I mean, so often we are running on these previous programs. And at some point, I'm a big believer that all of our programs have served a purpose. Okay.
Yes.
I had previous programming that was not the greatest, but it served its purpose for the time being. At
Yeah.
some point in my life, that program, because what that programming did to me was say, you got to fight, you got to stand up, you got to you got to protect yourself. You've got to, have a voice, right? And at some point though, that those stories me in trouble. That story, started helping, it really started limiting my ability to
Yeah.
create. It started to impact my ability. I mean, I was starting to sabotage some of my successes because of those stories. So at some point, when you rub against that,
My cat's scratching at the door here, so I'm gonna take this opportunity to let him in too. Come on in, cat. Hello.
so some of these, when we talk about mindset, it is kind of a global term. We're talking about, how we're showing up, the self-sabotaging behaviors, confidence,
Hmm.
self-worth, all of this, that's contributing to our mindset, but also um at some point, we've had these limiting beliefs that have served us, right?
Yeah.
I even call, from my own personal experience, had, some of these limiting beliefs that served me to a certain point, but at some point they stop performing, they stop serving us. And it actually can be detrimental. I can speak from my own personal experiences over and over again. And so at some point, there was a point in my life where it had to shift, it had to change. So it could be more of a contribution, right? And so I think that's,
What do you
we're
think that
looking
point was? Do you remember?
Oh, I had multiple points.
We
But
all
these
do.
these times of like pivots or transitions or whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it.
Micro
Uh,
shifts.
yeah, these like little micro shifts. And I think, goodness, I remember some like as a childhood, I think one of the downloads, I guess I would call it a little bit of a download. When I was very, very young, I was extraordinarily shy. Like when I say I was shy, I was deathly shy. I mean, oh my goodness, I just felt like I was just so afraid for any level of communication, because I had a learning disability that was undiagnosed for a really long time. I struggled with language. I always joke. I was on a call earlier today and I said, language is not my first language. Like I can't even tell you now that I'm speaking and podcasting and all this other stuff. I'm like, how in the world was I chosen to do this? Because language has been very challenging for me to do, tons of, like even communication. And so, where was I going with that? But when I was in sixth grade, I had this awareness. And now when I look back, I could probably call it a download. But at some point, because this would not been in alignment with what I was thinking and believing at the time, I was like, you know what? I got to figure this out. I got to figure out this shyness because this is not serving me. And so I signed up for the only thing that you could not be shy for. Do you want to take a guess at what that might be?
Debate club or theater?
Close, close. Cheerleading.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
I signed up and I was like a sixth grader trying out for the junior high team, which was middle school. And so I was in front of the entire high school and I felt like I was like an inch tall in the auditorium cheering, trying out. And I always joke with people, I'm like, I don't know if they felt bad for me or they just needed an extra body on the team, but somehow I made the team. But that was such a game changing experience for me because I had to find my voice very quickly. And it took me about 3 months of muddling through it to kind of feel that. But honestly, then I went on to become um, uh, in junior high, I ended up becoming in eighth grade the captain of the team, and it just continued to build. But it really put myself out there because that belief of whatever that was underneath that, probably honestly in truth be told, it was probably that I'm not enough or I'm not good enough, or that underlying belief that was that was showing up as shyness, that then I was able to transform into something better. And I'm so grateful now. I feel like I was born an introvert because of how I got the energy, but truly feel like I'm an extrovert. So I kind of almost had this like, kind of cool transition, during this whole time. So
That's
anyhow,
awesome.
yeah.
I mean, I really think that everything we want is on the other side of our fear, and that is such a great
Yeah.
example of that.
And it doesn't mean that we're not going to be like peeing our pants, terrified. Like,
No.
I mean, but I truly believe that. And I love that you said that because I truly believe that I'm constantly brushing up against fear. And when I see fear and I see that I'm rubbing up against her and I'm like, hey, hello, like I acknowledge her and I say hello to her and I greet her, I acknowledge her because I take some of her power away when I do that. But then I just trust and believe that she's here for me, right? I trust and believe
Yes.
that she's showing up for me. And when you think about emotions, emotions are our internal guidance system. So there's nothing to
Yes.
be afraid of. Like when we're angry because there's something it is communicating to us through our bodies, through our emotions. Hey, pay attention to something, right? So when fear shows up, I just greet her and have a conversation with her. Like literally, I'm like, hey, I got this. And then I usually will say that, I always say this probably wrong, but the Ho'oponopono saying, which is, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you.
Mm.
And then that kind of chills her out a bit, right? But then I continue to take steps forward with that. And over the years, I'm all about expanding that, right? How do I become more expansive? And one of the other things that I was terrified of doing was terrified of heights. So apparently we're born with two fears. Everything else is learned. But I kept wanting to and one of them is the sensation of falling, right? So I kind of feel like fear of heights and sensation of falling is kind of the same thing. So I'm like, I'm kind of born with it, but I'm like, but that's not true for everybody. I know lots of people that are not afraid of heights, right? So I have, over the last couple of years, I was probably say 10 to 15 years, I pushed myself, so I became kind of the adventurista. So I'm always testing boundaries and like, yes, let's do this. Let's go skydiving. Let's go ziplining. Let's do this. Let's do, like, I'm constantly seeking out that adventure just to prove to myself, like, yes, I can have that fear, but it doesn't have to overcome me. It doesn't have to stop me. And so it's been kind of a fun little activity that I do on the side of, constantly pushing those boundaries.
That's so wonderful. I'm actually doing a talk tomorrow on emotional hygiene. And so you are speaking my language.
I love it.
Girl, preach. I think it's so important, and people really don't understand this, that when you have an emotion, that emotion is there for you. It's trying to protect you from something. Now, that may be something that is not actually a threat to you, right?
Yes, true. Yes.
In which case you just let it know. It's like a little kid that's coming to you and saying, Mom, there's a monster under your bed. I need to protect you. And you say,
Yes.
Oh, I love you so much. Come here. Thank you so much for trying to protect me from that monster under the bed. But you know what? Mama's got it. Mama's got
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah, I love
You
it.
can go back
And
to bed.
whether it's perceived or it's real,
Mhm.
it's having that conversation because, again, I think sometimes when we bring awareness to it, again, it just I mean, it's like, okay, you heard me. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Absolutely. Just that acknowledgement and that validation. I think 90% of the time, once you do that, once you acknowledge that emotion, oh, hi, there you are. Thank you so much for coming. I've got this.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
goes. It
yes,
just goes.
yes. I love it. That's fantastic. Beautiful.
Yeah, I love it. So, the next question I usually ask is like, what was on your hero's journey? What was that moment of separation for you, where you realized that maybe you were different, maybe things weren't working for you the way they needed to work for you, and you just had to take a new path? What was that for you?
Yeah. Gosh, I guess the one of the one of the kind of the turning points that I had I'm going back even into high school,
Yeah.
and it was such a pivotal moment in my life that I call it up often because I think back to that time often and think, gosh, what a transformational experience that I had that like took me off. It may change the trajectory of my life. And I'm so grateful for it looking back. But essentially, so I grew up in a really small town, and in our school we had a career counselor, but we did not have a mental health therapist or social worker or anything like that dealt with the emotions. And so I was selected in my sophomore year in high school. Selected, there were 6 of us, 3 girls and 3 boys, that was trained in peer counseling. And so we got all the training. I mean, literally, we went to Washburn University, which is a huge mecca in Kansas for social work. And we got 3 days of training. We'd go back every 6 months with, amazing training. And I was in charge of the 5th and 6th graders. And at some point during that year, I had a 5th grader come to me and tell me that her 6th grade friend was going to commit suicide, that she had a plan,
Oof.
and it was pretty involved where her parents were going to go away for the weekend and she was going to have a babysitter for 2 nights. um, and she was going to commit suicide that Friday night. And she had the plan, she had the means, she had everything involved. And then she was going to tell the babysitter this, elaborate story. She's going to sleep in, don't bother, blah, blah, blah. And we intervened. And I mean, I don't know how old you are when you're a sophomore, but young, maybe what, I don't know, 15, 16.
Yeah.
And like I remember like we stepped in and I keep thinking like I think we saved this girl's life. I mean, like we took action, we got her hospitalized and we were able to get her supports and all of that stuff. And it was such one of those moments in my life that just pivoted. And I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, this is what I want to do. And I had some hurdles to go through because what I didn't realize is the career counselor that at the time did not support that route in life. for
Mhm.
various reasons. And he was very clear to me that he did not want me to pursue that. So he pretty much, I died in his eyes. He would not acknowledge me anymore. He would not talk to me. He would not support me. I was a first generation graduate student or college student. So I had to kind of figure things out on my own. And I am so grateful for that lesson. I had to figure it out. Like I didn't have someone guiding me. I didn't have someone. I was like, what is college? Like, what is, but what I feel like it made me become super adaptable too is like just the fact that it was, I had to figure it out. Like there was nobody else giving me the answers. There was nobody. So I'm so grateful for that lesson. That was such a gold nugget in that experience. And then I went on to, go into the, professional counseling and then continue to, grow and expand that. And then I found faster ways to help people. And so, um, but yeah, so that journey was a really powerful journey for myself.
Yeah, and just the fact that even as a high school student, you knew yourself well enough and trusted your intuition well enough to be
Yeah.
able to say to this authority figure, "No, I understand that you have your opinions or,
Point of view. Yes.
agenda, but I'm still gonna do what's
Yeah.
right for me." So, congratulations.
Yeah.
That's not nothing.
Yeah, and I always tell my daughter that it's like, just because someone says this is not possible, right? Kind of going back to the beginning of our conversation, doesn't mean that that's real. Doesn't mean that there's not another way or a solution or whatever. And I'm so grateful. I'm grateful that I didn't listen, right? Not that I'm giving the message to go against authority, but I'm just grateful that I continue to, persevere. And I'm so grateful. Like this whole path, like, has been so in a lot of ways divinely laid out.
Well, tell me more about that path. So, after the separation, there's that initiation period where you're learning
Yeah.
so much and finding everything that you need
Mhm.
to do what you're here to do. So, tell me a little bit more about that journey.
Yeah, like I think that process lasted for years actually because I just was so eager to learn, right? Finished my master's, got out to my own private practice, expanded that, built that, still learning. I learned a ton about business. I mean, I was just inundated. I loved the idea of business and systems and structure and, dived really deep into all of that, just eager to learn. And literally, like, I felt like the best way I can describe it is like, I feel like it was like a kid in a candy store. Like, just like, I just want to experience and taste and like play and like, oh, this is so great. And just doors started opening up. And I think that I was just trusting in the process and not having it all figured out. And when I look back at what I created with the counseling center, I really thought that that was going to be my end all be all. I thought that that was I honestly thought that I would retire and I would like, this would be the end all be all. But I realized looking back now that that was like my passion project. I kind of did things backwards. Like that was my passion project because I really was, I mean, we created a very large counseling practice that, continues to run itself and help thousands and thousands of people every year. And then what I just felt called to do just kept coming back in and just kept coming back in. And I always joke with people that I'm probably the first therapist that you'll ever hear talk. That I say I'm not a big component of therapy because I found other ways. I mean, I took my 23 years of counseling, I combined it with energy psychology, and then
Mhm.
I applied the principles of quantum physics. And so now when I'm working with entrepreneurs, I understand where they're coming from, but I also understand there's a better and faster way, so that people, I mean, sometimes the techniques and tools that I use with folks, it's literally 30 seconds to a minute. It doesn't take much.
Mhm.
And we can shift these paradigms, we can shift these, belief systems, and we can engage the brain in such a way that we can start having them see the evidence, very quickly. And when we start to shift that in the brain, and that's part of that reprogramming, it doesn't require much for people to be like, oh, okay, here we are. And now certain things start to line up. And that's truly what I feel called to do. So I know that this journey has been bringing me to this point. And when I look back, even at some of the darkest days that I experienced, I was like, oh, like there's such a, now I would never say this day one, but there's such a profound sense of gratitude. Like, I'm like,
Yes.
wow, like I am so grateful that that happened. Yes, did it take me out of, and did it feel awful, and did it da da da? Yes, but there was so much lessons learned, and there was just, such amazing things that came out of that journey. And so profound for the journey. And I get it that I'm one of these people that like to have the answers now. I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's go. But it's having that, like, my greatest lesson, I suppose, in this lifetime is having patience. Still learning. I'm still working on that one. But it's been a profound journey.
That sounds so amazing. And now I want to ask you, like, can you do something with me? Like, can we do an exercise here? I
Yeah.
always do an
What
exercise
should
at
we
the
play
end of
with?
my podcast, so I'll do that for you in a minute. But I would love for
Yeah.
you to do something with me. Dealer's choice, man. This is
Dealer's
your stuff.
choice.
So I'm rolling up my sleeves here. I'm excited.
Oh my gosh, she's getting ready.
Quantum
So,
physics. Let's do this.
let's talk, I'm trying to think of something that would be global for the audience.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, let's do this. Let's do like a little, we'll do this like a little, are you familiar with Brain Gym?
Mm-mm.
Okay, let's do this, because this
Okay.
is a fun exercise that's global that you can do every day. You can do during the night. There's lots of ways in which you can utilize this. So for the listeners, if you're driving, pull over, take some notes, pause, come back to this. Okay. I don't want you doing this when you're driving. Okay.
Yes.
So
No
I'm like,
distracted driving, please.
yes, I'm gonna explain this because I don't think we're not on video normally, right? This is just a podcast. I mean,
Um,
like, audio.
I do usually use the video on YouTube as
Oh,
well.
perfect. Oh, good. Well,
Okay,
I'm
great.
going to do this for the listeners too. So I'm going to
Okay,
describe what I'm doing.
perfect.
It's going to be a little, I'll take my time explaining it. So what I want you to do is bring out your hands fully to in front of you, like you're kind of like what is it? Frankenstein. And I want your thumbs pointing up to the ceiling, and then your kind of fingers down to the ground, but just hands out in front of you. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's pause for a second. Let me do this first. Go ahead and clasp your hands like you normally would. Okay, now look down on your hands and which thumb is on top. If your left thumb's on top, you're my lefties. If your right thumb is on top, you're my righties. If your thumbs happen to be in the middle, okay, continue interlacing them with the rest of your fingers, okay? And then you will have a left or a right, okay? So now that we know what you are, Adrienne, what are you?
I'm a lefty, as it turns
Oh,
out.
lefty. Okay, fantastic. I'm like, oh, me, I'm a lefty too. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring out your hands like Frankenstein again. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna cross for my lefties, you're gonna cross your left hand over your right hand at the wrist. Okay, you guys may want to come and check out her video on YouTube. Okay, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take your hands and then have them continue facing the floor
Okay.
and move them all the way around until they kind of come back on top of each other again. And then you're going to clasp your hands together again. And then you're going to pull this up to your chest. And then you're going to take your left leg over your right leg at the ankle or at the knee, whichever you feel more comfortable doing. And we're going to have you hold that. Now, for my righties, go ahead and you hold like that. I'm just going to do the other way too for the other people listening. So if you're right over left, you would take your hands, put them out like Frankenstein, do the same thing right over left at the wrist, twist down towards the floor until they come back together again, and then hook up, and then right leg over left at the ankle or at the knee. And we're going to hold this for a minute, which a minute's a really long time. So we'll just kind of do this for just a few seconds. But when you're doing this at home, do it for a minute. And what this does, it's called the whole brain hookup. And it's great to get the brain grounded. If you're having hard times coming up with that name, you're like, oh, what's that person's name? It's on the tip of my tongue. Or you can't remember something. This is a great exercise to do. It's a great exercise to start your day with. For the speakers or the coaches out there that are in front of audiences, that are speaking, that are doing things, this is a great exercise to do to help you. What it helps do is bring the files from your reptilian part of the brain up to your frontal cortex of your brain. So you're actually accessing files that are kind of back into the forefront. So you won't forget stuff as often or as easily. When I'm doing exercises and workshops, I do this as one of the things that we start with, because we found that it helps ground the brain, but it also helps retain the information. So if you're especially at long workshops or things like that, it's great actually to help you retain the information. Super great. If you find your brain kind of like zinging, it's like, oh, bouncing off all the, like, And this is a great exercise to help ground it as well. So once we do this for a minute, then go ahead and unhook your ankles and your hands. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have your hands, just the fingertips. So you're going to touch your left hand with your right hand, just the fingertips. So it's kind of like you have an invisible ball in between your hands. And we're going to hold this for 1 minute. Okay. Again, this is great before you go to bed at night. It's great to wake up in the morning and do this. Literally, it's 2-minute exercise, but it's fantastic for the brain. And it's a great exercise to, again, just to start your day. So,
Very cool.
yes,
Thank you so much. That was awesome.
yes,
Okay, well, I think I'd love to segue here into my favorite little exercise that I
yeah,
like
let's
to
do
do with
it.
my guests. So what I'll have you do, if you would not mind, is just to close your eyes for a moment.
Okay.
And we're just going to take a couple of deep breaths together first. Okay, awesome. I always like to envision colored light coming into me
Okay.
as I breathe in. So I'm going to have you do this one more time and then tell me what color is the light that's coming into you.
Okay. So I initially got like a lightish tealish blue color.
Cool. So that is the color of your throat chakra, communication. And so that's kind of perfect that we're here today doing that.
Here we
So
are. Like it just
good
keeps coming
stuff,
back to me. Like,
right? Love
I love
it.
it.
Language is your first language. You're in this.
Oh,
Okay.
I know.
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have you close your eyes, and I have over here a magic wand. Okay.
Okay.
And once I wave this magic wand, everything that you deeply desire will come to pass here in the present moment. Okay. So I've waved my magic wand. You now have everything that you deeply desire. Your life is exactly as you would like it to be. You are fully yourself. There is nothing in your way. All your obstacles are gone. Now, I want you to look around this existence that you have created for yourself and just describe it to me. What do you see, hear, taste, touch, and smell in this space?
Well, I feel like it's already like here. Like I feel myself sitting in my studio. I feel,
Gorgeous.
yeah, and it's so I smell this amazing, like my daughter has this amazing room spray that she sprays. It's like citrusy,
Mm.
coconutty. It's delicious. And there's just a lightness, and there's a sense of freedom and a sense of joy and happiness and excitement in the space.
Absolutely. So I want you to, in your mind, just go to a different space now, which is kind of your happy place. This is the place that you go if things are not going right. This is where you go to recenter.
Okay.
What is that space like
Um,
for you?
Definitely at the beach. It's
Mm,
my feet in the sand, in the water. It is just the sun beaming down. There's just a place of peace. It's a place of ease. It's the waves crashing in. That's my happy place.
what can you hear there?
The waves, the birds, the seagulls, laughter from a distance. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And now I want you to see yourself. You're doing what brings you meaning.
Hmm.
So you're probably working with someone, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And I want you to see on their face that you have just helped them have a massive breakthrough,
Okay.
that she's just got it now. And
Got it.
she's so grateful and she's so kind of overwhelmed with this emotion of
Hmm.
this moment. And just feel that for a moment and tell me what that feels like.
Oh, it's light, and it's powerful and profound, and um, it's like this overwhelming sense of gratitude and joy of being able to support and serve individuals.
Absolutely. Is there anything in this ideal space that is different from your life as it is now?
No, I mean, I feel like it's interesting because I can see like everything in like the full picture, and I feel like it's
Mhm.
here, like it's really here.
It's here. So I want you to feel that for a moment. Like,
Yeah.
just really take a moment to feel you created this.
Yeah.
You did this. This is yours. And I want you to just look back. How did you get here? What were the specific commitments that you needed to make to create what you have now?
The first thing was creating a team, a team
Mhm.
behind me. Being able to outsource the things that I was not good at and that
Yeah,
stay in the zone of, what I'm really good at. And so, that was probably the biggest thing was creating the team
awesome.
support to help carry out this bigger mission.
Awesome. You can open your eyes. Thank you for going on that little journey
Yeah,
with
I
me.
love it. Yeah, and it's so funny because like we literally last week on my a call that we do a free call on Tuesdays. It's talkingwithteri.com/Tuesdays, and we did a come as you are party. And I was like, so I actually created my studio for that event, but now I've kept it that way. So it's like, oh, it's here. Like I literally in the space that we're creating. So
I love it. I just want to let you know you are the first person. I've done this so many times. You are the first person who has said, I'm already there.
yeah,
There's nothing different.
I know. Look
I've
at this.
arrived.
Look at this. Like,
I
I don't know if
love
you
it.
can see this. Like, this is part of my studio. That's for the TV show that we're
Mhm.
launching. And we have it ready to get launched. And then we have a big event that we're launching on February 2nd. And so it's like it's here. It's I've done a lot to get here, but it's here.
Yeah,
It's pretty profound.
that's fantastic.
I love it.
So, what would you say is the main message or takeaway that you want people to walk away with today?
Oh, yes, that we are these amazingly powerful, creative, generative beings. And here's the thing that I want people to remember because we already know it in our heart of hearts, we already know it, but we've forgotten over the path is that we were
I'm gonna hold on.
born.
I'm gonna get into the position here.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. What are we doing? Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Let's do it. Oh, wait. What are you doing?
I'm trying to get back into my you
Oh,
talked me
yes.
through
Oh,
this
yes.
before.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
I want to
Yes.
remember this, right?
Oh,
Okay.
yes. So then left of a right and then hook up
Okay.
and
Yes,
then
yes, yes. Okay.
left leg over
Perfect.
right
Okay.
leg.
Got it. Got it. Got it.
Um, Um, oh, where was I going with this now? Sorry. But that
Main
we are
message. Take away.
we are these profound beings. And I think sometimes we think, do we have it? Do we not have it? But we were born with it. Like we were literally, it was like a little like every one of us when we were born into this pure positive energy, we were gifted everything that we needed in that little ball before we even became into physical being. And with that we were equipped with all the gifts and all the talents and all the beingness that we needed to shine our light in this place and space. And it's not about if we have it or don't. We have it. It's us really um relearning it and uncovering it, right? Because it was born within us. And then when we do that, it is like, and I always give the example of the Buddha. So in 1957, there was some monks that were in the process of moving this giant clay Buddha from one location to the other. Well, during the move, it actually part of the it cracked. So the monk that was in charge was very distraught. He went down to check on it. He shined a flashlight on this or on the statue, and what he discovered was something shining back. Well, in further discovery, what they did was they took away all the plaster and they discovered a giant 10 and a half foot solid gold Buddha that was, $250 million worth. And I think it weighed over 250 million in weight. And what they discovered was they tried to the Burmese were going to invade Thailand, and so the monks had taken and put all this clay on this Buddha so that it wouldn't have been stolen during the war. Now all the monks were killed during that war, and so it was left unknown for over 200 years. So I think about us like going through life, like we are this beautiful golden Buddha, golden energy, and then we've gotten stuff has stuck on us, right? Like our insecurities, our fears, our doubts, our worries, our insecurities, all of that. But when we break free from that, we are just this totally amazing being. And I'm going to invite people to go back into that place and space which they know and trust, that inner knowing that says, yes, I am meant to do more. I am meant to do something profoundly grateful or profound in this world. And I whether that's having an impact on 5 people or having an impact on 500 million people, whatever that calling is talking to you, listen to it and take note of it, because it's powerful. It's powerful when you tap into it.
That's awesome. That's one of my favorite stories too. I love that one.
Love it.
And I really want to reiterate everything that you've said today. I think, this falls just perfectly in line with everything that I do and everything that I teach.
Yeah.
You are a creator. Everybody out there listening, you are a creator. You are a powerful creator. And all the limitations that you think you have, they're just up here.
Yeah, yeah, and we can get through them. We can get through them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you so much for being here. And please tell us more about the events that you have coming up.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure when this will drop live, but I do have an event coming up February 2nd. It is a free event. It's a 3-hour training that we're going to be doing around the mindset. So I would recommend for folks going to talkingwithteri.com. We'll be having some information pop up there, and you can get your all access pass there. And then, look for me I'm on all the social media platforms. I have my own podcast called Talking with Teri. It's on all the major platforms, and we are releasing our very first, in the next month, our very first television show.
Oh, awesome. That sounds
Yeah.
great.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, and here's the thing. If folks want to come and get a free copy of my book, it's called Be the Magic of You, Tools to Transform Your Life. It has a foreword written by Jack Canfield. They can go and check it out at bethemagicofyou.com, and they can get their free copy.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for being here,
Yeah,
Terry.
of course. Thank you.